Guests on Keel heard via the Jack Spring Electric Keel Newsmaker hotline. Dr. Jim Henderson is University of Louisiana System's president. Dr. Jim, welcome back to Keel. So the governor yesterday, what does that mean for you guys in all your colleges and universities? Does it affect summer school, the fall? Help us out.
Well, it's great news when you can see us making progress, right? Especially since that progress is based on data and recommendations from health experts. For us, for the summer, we had already made our plans to continue with online instruction, but it does mean that there'll be some return to some normal function, which is a good sign, and it aligns well with our plans to have a presence on our campuses this fall. And anytime you see the economy reopening, that's good news for all of us.
Are you concerned at all? Well, let's talk two things. One, let's talk potential lost revenue or real lost revenue. And as far as school attendance across the board, collegiate attendance, how is this affecting that? Or are you worried about that?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm worried. I would say that it's a concern. You're seeing nationwide a lot of students that are considering their options for going to colleges and universities. But a lot of those students are saying they want to stay closer to home. They want to, which is what we are. The University of Louisiana System, our 9 universities are all close to home for Louisianans. So I think that some of the impact, when you hear it in the aggregate or you hear about it nationally, it's a little bit different for us in Louisiana. So I'm optimistic that we'll have students. I will tell you that things will look a little different on campuses, where even in the best case scenario, you won't see 150 to 200 students in a single classroom. They'll have a lot more spacing, a lot more sanitary protocols. We'll, of course, be communicating proficiently or prolifically, at least, if not proficiently, and just paying attention to all the internal and external factors that affect our ability to deliver education safely.
I know you were watching the revenue estimating conference yesterday. Show what is it, a 500, maybe $1 billion shortfall, and higher education is one of the only unprotected areas of our budget. Concern you that you could be really facing some budget slashes?
Well, we went through a decade of budget slashes, which meant we went from being almost 70% state funded to now being less than 25% state funded. So if you think in terms of a 10% cut, it's a lot less of 25% than it was of 70%. That's doing some quick math for you this morning. But it is still troubling, right? We still have some of the most under-resourced institutions in the country. In fact, on a per-student basis, we operate with less revenue than 48 other states. That's per student, right? So that's not just a total cost of education. That's on a per-student basis. So any budget cut is going to be difficult. I will tell you that we've been working very closely with the administration, with members of the legislature, to find ways to stem any cuts to higher education. I will tell you this, that the work that occurs in our colleges and universities is absolutely essential to the full recovery of the Louisiana economy. And we're going to work very closely with our legislators and the administration to ensure that that's reflected in the budget solutions they develop.
Jim, if you're talking about lower numbers in the classroom, that looks to be more faculty would be needed. How do you hire faculty when you're facing budget cuts? I mean, you're in a big pickle.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think what you'll see is a lot of hybrid instruction in places where that makes sense. Remember, we also have a number of faculty that could be more vulnerable to the coronavirus infection. So we're going to be doing things that ensure that we're taking care of them, protecting their safety. So you will see a much larger online presence regardless of what happens. You'll see a number of students that may have underlying conditions or complications that make it safer for them to be online. So that allows us to bring things to scale. But you're right, there is going to be an increased instructional cost. And in fact, our first estimate of, this a shot in the dark, but it is informed shot in dark, is about a $48 million increase in instructional cost at our system alone. So it is complicated.
Speaking of money, revenue, etc., you concerned about TOPS money at all?
Always concerned about TOPS money because of the promise that we've made to students. You know, and we've been talking about this now since for a decade together. You know, TOPS is a commitment that the state of Louisiana makes to students, and I have yet to hear anyone mention TOPS as a potential area to be cut.
Does that scare? Pardon me. Does that scare you a little bit? I mean, do you think that like they're talking about it and they're just not talking about it to you?
You know, it'd be like someone talking about it at the dinner table and you not having a clue. That's how close we are in this work, and so I don't think that's the case. Now, it doesn't mean that as we just get the revenue numbers and we start looking at all options, that wouldn't be one that comes up in the discussion. But you know, when we tell students that when you succeed and when you perform at this level, that we're going to fund this portion of your college education, that's a pretty sacrosanct promise, and I hope we find a way to ensure we deliver on that promise. We owe it to these students.
Last 30 seconds or so. Butts in seats for football this fall or no?
You know, I think so. I don't think you'll see butts touching other butts in seats in stadiums. You'll see some space in between. But, you know, it's an important part of campus life. It's an important part of community life. And when we can do it in a safe way, I think absolutely you'll see some butts in stadiums.